No problem. Well, first, I'd like to say thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm excited to be here, number one. Um, I'm going to start with why I'm here, then I'll go a little bit into history. Um, the reason why I was asked to testify, me and my wife, Tanisha, was because our story about our home went viral. And it went viral because we had an appraiser come out in 2019 to appraise our home. I was at home at the time. She was an older white woman, and she appraised our house for just underneath $1 million. This was after we had put already 400,000, an additional $400,000 into our property. It wasn't the first appraisal that we got. We had got an appraisal a year before we did an additional 1,300 square feet, and the appraiser appraised our house for just under $1 million. But everything else in our area, we did our homework. We know it should appraise for about 1.4. So we had to fight against it. And we fought, and the next appraiser came out and appraised our house for $500,000 more, 1.4. That's a $500,000 difference, just because we believe the white lady wanted to devalue our property because we are in a black neighborhood and the home belonged to a black family. But the second appraiser, we did something different. We asked our good friend, Jan, to come out and act like she was my wife, Tanisha. We took down all of our black art. We took down pictures of our family. Anything that could have resembled that this home belonged to a young black couple, we took it down. Jan brought over a picture of her family, and she sat at our island, and she acted as if she was my wife. And yes, the home was appraised for $500,000 more. Appraised for what it should have been appraised for. And for, yes, we was thankful that that happened. Just imagine if we didn't have the will or the strength to fight against the appraisal company. Now, I would like to go back a little bit, and then I'll come back to that again. But my grandparents migrated from the South to work in the shipyards back in the 1940s. They worked in the Sausalito shipyards, which is located in Marin County. They worked in those shipyards, and everybody at that time lived in governmental housing, which was located in Marin City. When the war ended around 1942, World War II ended in 1942, my grandparents had enough money, both sets, my dad and my mother grandparents. They both had enough money and they wanted to relocate if they had the opportunity throughout Marin. But they did not have that opportunity. Due to redlining, black people wasn't able to buy land outside of Marin City and the rest of Marin. If you look at Marin County currently, it's arguably the richest county in California. But the data shows from race counts that Marin County also has the largest disparities anywhere. Education, economics. There's such a huge gap from what you see white people have and what you see the small percentage of black people have. And so, yes, I do want to see a change because I don't want to see my children have to deal with this. I do want to see our property value in Marin City to increase because currently it's not looked upon that as if it should increase. So I live in a county where currently our neighbors a mile away, their homes are valued at 1.6, 1.7, even though it sits on the same lot. If the home may even be smaller, we have to question ourselves and ask, why is that? I know for me, I could just look directly at the county in which I live in, which is predominantly white, and look at the small pocket of that is Marin City and how Marin City have been treated constantly, how it's been ignored, how the education system has failed our children, and I mean black children. The Marin City Sausalito School District got hit with a desegregation law 2 years ago, the first one in over 50 years in California, because a district that only has 2 schools in it decided to put all the black and brown kids in one school and then deprive them of what they needed. So yes, the state had to step in and stop that. This is the small city that I live in. And it's not even a city, it's actually not incorporated. There's about 3,000 people in this area, and the land is very valuable. It's 7 minutes away from the Golden Gate Bridge. So we are right now fighting gentrification because the land is so valuable. But then we fast forward back to my story. We wasn't looking to sell our home. We was not looking to do anything with our home but complete the small details and build out that we was looking to do. Our home initially was 1,300 square feet. We then added an additional 1,300 square feet. That's 2,000 square feet. And when this lady came in and looked at our home and she was, oh, I love your view. She talked about everything that we've done with it, added the fireplace, added a room downstairs for us, plus added an ADU, an apartment, 1 bedroom. And then for her to come back and lowball us and give us comps, the comps that she used for our home was so off and so wrong. She used a townhome that was only like 1,100 square feet. She did use a home in a neighboring area, but the home was small, it was ran down. She called Marin City a distinct marketable area. I took that as code word, as it's a black area. We have a beautiful water view of the bay. She deemed us for having a view or our house being on a hill. Something that I've never heard before when talking to other people in this business. But one thing that I can say is our story empowered other people to step up and really look at the practices from appraisals that has negatively affected black and brown people. It's the systems that has been created by white people for white people that continuously negatively affect people that look like me. So yes, on this day, I'm excited to be here because this can actually be something tangible to really help create change. So my daughter and my son won't have to go through the same things that me and my wife went through. If people could just imagine their home being devalued by $500,000 when all you're trying to do is make a better life for yourself, of how that makes you feel. It makes me angry. It makes me upset. There was times where I was physically so tied up that my stomach hurt, my head hurt, just because of what we went through. I don't wish that on anybody. There should be no reason why black folks should be devalued in America today. Traditionally, it has constantly happened, but now it's time for us to take those steps and right the wrongs. This is the opportunity now for us to look at reparations or damages for what has been done to the Black American from the time we was brought here. We are the only race that have not had an opportunity to be given what we deserve for all that we have done here in the United States. We constantly live through trauma that's been passed down from generation to generation, but we also have been the resilient people to constantly help build and fight for America. So my story, I can directly look at my grandparents and the struggle they went through and look at the redlining issues that they had to deal with when they grew up. But for me to also have to deal with it 60 years later, 80 years later, it should not, because this shouldn't constantly happen. We're in 2021 and this happened in 2019 to me. I do have one story I want to leave with. My dad, grandparents, was arguably the first black people to build a home in Mill Valley, which is a neighboring white town right next to Marin City. The story that they told me, because it took me a while to understand, they had a driveway that was a 90-degree drop. Their house was in the hills, but they had a driveway that was a 90-degree drop. You could not see the house from the road. And when I asked them why, they told me, grandson, I had to build this home at nights and on weekends so we wouldn't be detected, because they didn't want any black families living in their city. And that sat with me for a long time. And while yet they had an opportunity to build that home, they had a white man who got the lumber for them. And this was in the 1950s. The lady who actually sold them the deed, she ended up getting blackballed years later, because they found out that she sold a home to a black family. And that's always sat on me since I was like 10 years old. But then you fast forward 35 years later, and then I have to go through essentially the same thing. So now it's the time for folks to step up. California, do what's right. Give black people what they deserve. I appreciate everybody's time.